He kissed me goodbye, said, "Don't wait up, business dinner." The lipstick on his collar wasn't corporate red. So while he ordered her champagne, I packed his entire life into garbage bags. His important dinner ended with his belongings on the curb. And the security cameras? Oh, they captured everything. My name is Ilara Chen. I'm a food stylist. My career is built on making things look delicious, authentic, and nourishing. Ironic considering my marriage had become a masterclass in presenting a hollow, beautifully plated lie. The betrayal began with a single misplaced seed, a fleck of crimson on starched white cotton, poppy red. The shade was called stiletto, according to the tube I'd found months ago, forgotten in the glove compartment of his car. I'd said nothing then, filing the evidence away in a quiet corner of my mind. Tonight, however, the evidence had migrated to his collar, a vibrant smudge just below his ear as he straightened his tie. "Big client dinner," he said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. His hands, usually reserved for brief functional touches, fussed with his cuffs. He was performing. "The Japanese investors. Is going to be a late one. Don't wait up." He leaned in. For 11 years, his goodbye kiss had been a predictable punctuation, a dry peck tasting of coffee and routine. Tonight, it was different. It was a performance too deliberate, too soft. It didn't taste like goodbye. It tasted like a man rehearsing for his next scene. "Have fun," I said, my voice the perfect texture of wifely belief. The old Ilara would have straightened that tie, would have breathed in the scent of his new, sharper cologne and felt a flutter. This Ilara stood perfectly still, a food critic assessing a suspiciously over-garnished dish. The door clicked shut. I moved to the bay window, watching his taillights disappear. Not toward downtown, toward the waterfront, where the intimate, dimly lit bistros hid couples in velvet banquettes. I didn't rage. I began my own recipe. First, the digital trail. Our shared tablet, still logged into his email, a confirmation for Le Coq Noir, a notoriously romantic, prix-fixe French enclave, not an investor-friendly steakhouse. Reservation for 2, 8 p.m. His note, celebrating new beginnings. A cold, clean clarity washed over me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a meticulously planned menu. He was out savoring the amuse-bouche of his new life, while I was still the leftover meal he couldn't be bothered to clear from the fridge. That's when I saw them, his prized vintage sneaker collection, lined with military precision in the custom floor-to-ceiling shelves he demanded I design, his holy grail Air Jordans, his unworn Dunk Lows, each pair a trophy, each pair a piece of his identity he loved more transparently than he'd loved me in years. A slow, deliberate smile touched my lips. He was out feasting on his new beginning. It was only fair I prepare a little final course for him here. I walked to the garage and pulled out the heavy-duty black contractor bags. They sighed open with a sound like impending judgment. I started with the shoes. The garage became my kitchen, and his prized possessions were my ingredients. Each shoe, each garment held a memory I now seasoned with bitter clarity. I handled his cashmere sweaters, the ones he'd wear on chilly evenings when he'd pull me onto his lap by the fireplace, his hands warm through the wool. Now they were just fiber, hollow of his heat. I moved to his office, the mahogany desk where he'd built his empire. On it sat a framed photo from our honeymoon in Santorini. My fingers traced the glass over our smiling faces, his arm a possessive band around my sun-kissed waist, a band that had loosened year by year until it was just this photograph. I placed it gently in the bag. Let the memory be garbage too. My phone buzzed, a location notification he'd forgotten to disable. He was still at Le Coq Noir. I could almost hear the clink of wine glasses, the low murmur of new beginnings conversation. A fresh, sharp pain, not of heartbreak, but of insult. He was savoring desserts while I was here dismantling the life he so carelessly spoiled. This fueled me. I entered his walk-in closet, a temple to his vanity, rows of tailored suits, each a costume for a role, the devoted husband, the powerful executive. I ran my hand over the sleeve of his favorite Tom Ford tuxedo. He'd worn it the night he'd whispered, "You're the only woman in this room," at a charity gala, his breath hot on my ear. A lie expertly tailored. I began pulling them from their hangers. The fine fabrics whispered as they slid into the dark plastic. With each garment, I packed away a performance. The crisp Oxfords he wore to look trustworthy, the soft Henleys for calculated casualness, the silk boxers, a ridiculous luxury, all of it fuel for the curb. Finally, I opened his nightstand drawer. Inside, the predictable secrets, a half-empty bottle of expensive cologne, a sleek watch, and a single stray silver earring. Not mine, hers, a delicate, dagger-like drop. I held it up. It caught the light, a tiny, sharp metaphor. I dropped it in a bag. Proof for whoever cared to look. The house echoed, a shell being scraped clean. Outside, the night deepened. Inside, my recipe for retribution was nearly ready to serve. Under the clinical glow of the porch light, the pile grew. Black bags, swollen with a life's curation, formed a grotesque sculpture on our manicured lawn. It was a public autopsy of our marriage, and the quiet street was my witness. I saved his most precious ingredients for last. The vintage vinyl collection he curated instead of conversations, the limited edition whiskey bottles, unopened, meant for a future that would now never toast to us. The golf clubs, the stress relief that took him away every Saturday. I laid them beside the bags like a bizarre yard sale where everything was free and the price had already been paid in deceit. My final touch was not an item, but a message. From our tablet, I logged into the neighborhood security app. I pulled up the live feed of our front yard, the pile clearly visible. I set the clip to record, framed perfectly. Then I opened my text thread with him. The last message was from me hours ago. "Hope your dinner is productive." I attached the 30-second security video, no text, just the silent cinematic shot of his entire material world waiting on the curb. I hit send. The notification showed delivered, then a moment later, read. I imagined the scene at Le Coq Noir, the phone lighting up the linen tablecloth, his companion's curious smile freezing as the color drained from his face, the champagne turning to vinegar in his mouth. That moment of perfect, shattering clarity, that was my amuse-bouche. I went inside, leaving the front door unlocked. I poured myself a glass of cold Chardonnay, the opposite of whatever rich red he was likely spilling. I sat in the living room, in the chair facing the door. I waited. The silence was no longer empty. It was charged like the air before a storm. The recipe was complete. The dish was plated. All that remained was for the guest of dishonor to arrive and discover that the menu had been changed permanently. His headlights washed over the front window at 1:17 a.m. The engine cut. A long, dead pause. I took a slow sip of wine, the crisp acidity a counterpoint to the bitterness he must be swallowing. The car door slammed, hard. Through the window, I saw his silhouette, rigid against the streetlight, staring at the mountain of his former life. He didn't move toward the pile. He stormed toward the house. The front door flew open. He stood there, tie loosened, face a mask of fury and disbelief. The scent of rich food and another woman's perfume preceded him, a final insulting garnish. "What the hell is this, Alara?" His voice was a shard of glass. "I believe it's called taking out the trash," I said, my voice calm. "You seemed too busy to handle it." "Those are my things, my life." "Was," I corrected softly. "That was your life. This," I gestured around the room, now feeling lighter, airier, "is mine." He took a step forward, his eyes wild. "You've lost your mind. This is insane. Over a stupid dinner?" "Was the coq noir good?" I asked, tilting my head. "I hear their foie gras is exquisite, a bit rich, perhaps, like your lies." He froze. The confirmation hit him. I knew where, not just that. His bravado cracked. It wasn't what you think. I think a poppy red lipstick called Stiletto left its mark on your collar. I think you toasted to new beginnings while I was the old ending you hadn't bothered to finish. I think you're a cliché, Marcus, and I don't style clichés. His anger deflated, replaced by a sputtering panic. You can't do this. I'll call the police. Please do, I smiled. The security footage is ready. It clearly shows me removing personal property from my own home. It also shows you arriving at 1:17 a.m., smelling of another woman, after a business dinner at a Lover's Lane bistro. I'm sure they'll find your story very productive. He was wordless, a man who'd written a script only to find his co-star had rewritten the entire play. Your new beginning is out there, I nodded toward the curb. I've packed it for you. Don't let the door hit you on your way to it. He left, not with a crushing retort, but with the slumped shoulders of a man who'd been evicted from his own narrative. He spent an hour on the curb under the cold moon, frantically stuffing bags into his car, a ridiculous, undignified scramble. The security camera captured it all. Every stumble, every dropped shoe, every defeated glance toward the house where I no longer waited. I didn't watch. I was already cleaning. By dawn, the curb was empty. So was his side of the closet, the bathroom shelf, the garage. The air breathed differently. The air felt lighter, scrubbed clean of his expectations and the weight of my performance. A week later, the official envelope arrived. Divorce papers, filed by my lawyer. Swift, clean, favorable. He signed them without contest, too humiliated to fight. The security footage, I'd been told, was a compelling, silent witness. My friends called it explosive, cathartic revenge, but to me it wasn't about the explosion. It was about the silence that came after, the peace of a kitchen after an elaborate, exhausting meal has been cleared away. I kept one item from that night, the single, dagger-like silver earring. I didn't keep it as a trophy of his betrayal, but as a reminder of my own precision. The moment I held it, I had chosen my recipe. I had it framed in a tiny shadow box, a cold piece of art titled Ingredient X, the Catalyst. It hangs in my new studio. Sometimes I still style food, but now I also consult for high-end clients on space clearing, not just decluttering, but the art of removing the emotional residue left by things and people who no longer nourish you. He tried to contact me once, 6 months later, a text that read, "I never understood what I had until I saw it all on the curb." I didn't respond. He was wrong. He never had me. He'd had my performance, and that night I'd simply taken my final bow, packed up the set, and turned the lights off for his show for good. The best revenge isn't always served cold. Sometimes it's served at the perfect temperature, calculated, precise, and leaving a taste the recipient can never, ever forget.